Chapter 20. Betrayed into a coma. It was a long walk through hostile territory to Jenny's house. I chanced it anyway. I made sure to avoid side streets and put the expression of a lost little boy on my face. I reached my destination without being touched, thank God. At Jenny's house, I immediately climbed into the window, knowing that she would be waiting and willing. Jenny, however, blocked my way. I thought that maybe her parents were up and she didn't want to take a chance, but that had never stopped her before. Something had to be wrong. I threatened to make all kinds of noise and tell her parents the truth if she didn't let me in. She looked at me with a scared, puzzled look on her face, then moved out of my way. Once I got in and approached her with a kiss, she became the waiting and willing Jenny I'd known and come to expect. Jenny had gotten used to me performing oral sex on her and had actually begun to expect it. This time, however, she completely refused. Even when I persisted and faked anger, she refused. This was not at all the Jenny I was accustomed to. I began wondering what was going on. After we had sex, I asked her about her sudden refusal of oral sex. Jenny put a serious look on her face and said that she had to confess something to me, but that it was my own fault. Jenny confessed that Speedy had just left her room about 15 minutes before I got there. She said that Speedy had told her about China and me, and that since I had decided to share myself with someone, so had she. I asked her if she had fucked Speedy. She said yes without hesitation. Maybe she thought that saying that would make me feel better. She was wrong. I felt betrayed, used. I was angry as hell. I began wondering how many other guys were climbing up to Jenny's window when I wasn't around. My pride was hurt and my male ego was shattered. I got dressed, slapped the shit out of her, and quickly climbed out the window. I would usually wait for the bus at the corner, but this time I was so angry that I just kept walking up Western Avenue on my way up to Hector's. Jenny's unfaithfulness did not hurt me emotionally. I considered Jenny a piece of meat and nothing more, my personal piece of meat. Now I felt that she had violated my manhood and disrespected me. The sex between Jenny and me and between Jenny and Speedy took place in her bedroom while her parents had no clue. Instead of slapping Jenny, I could have killed her and her parents would have had no idea what happened. For some reason, Jenny's parents didn't have the slightest thought about what was going on in her life right there in their own house. Was it their ignorance or her conniving ways? Whatever it was, this scene is all too familiar in the hood. I kept thinking of how I was going to kill Speedy for being such a backstabbing bastard. If he would have just made the move on Jenny without snitching on me, then I wouldn't have thought it was his fault. But no, he had to use me to get into my girlfriend's panties. What a punk. The fact that Jenny had sex with Speedy without even trying to find out if what he told her about China was really true drove me crazy. Maybe she had become a prick-loving bitch like Lucy and her friends. As far as I was concerned, Jenny had acted like a cheap bitch by having sex with me using the excuse that Speedy didn't satisfy her. What a fucking whore. It never crossed my mind that I was out there getting laid by other girls without Jenny's knowledge. Why had sleeping with many partners made me a stud while it made Jenny a bitch? I tried blocking Jenny out of my mind by thinking about China. I suddenly realized that I was in the Gaylord's hood. I looked around and didn't see anybody except for a kid about my age throwing a ball under a viaduct. It was a white boy. I began walking at a faster pace, knowing I could handle the kid under the viaduct, but not wanting to be seen by anybody else. The viaduct was located on Western Avenue and Bloomingdale Street. Western ran under it. As I got closer, the guy saw me and stopped throwing the ball. When I got under the viaduct, he stepped in front of me. I tried going around him, but he blocked my way. "What the fuck's wrong with you?" I asked. He said, "Hey, Spig, you don't know where you're at, huh?" Then he said, "You're a dead Puerto Rican," and tried to hit me. I blocked his punch and punched him in the face. I pulled back and got ready to hit him again when I suddenly felt a sharp pain on the top of my head and then another. Everything went blurry and I fell to the ground. I covered my head and face with my arms and felt a blunt object pounding me. I felt pain on my lower back and on my left leg. I thought I had been stabbed. I started silently praying for mercy and then finally passed out. I woke up in the hospital. Everything was blurry when I opened my eyes. I could see figures standing on each side of me, but I couldn't make out who they were. When my eyes focused, I could see Maria, Morena, and China. Doctors and nurses came running in and started to perform various tests on me. I heard one of them turn around and tell Maria that her son would be all right. China held my hand tightly and kissed it. I could see tears of joy running down her face. I heard Morena telling someone on the phone that I had finally woken up. I looked at China and tried to ask her what Morena was talking about, but I had a hole stuck down my throat that prevented me from talking. I also had hoses up my nostrils and in one of my ears. I had an IV needle stuck in one arm and one giving me blood in the other arm. I must have looked like Frankenstein. I was in bad shape. Morena bent over me and kissed me on the forehead. She said, "Hey, Sleeping Beauty, you've been out for 9 days. My kisses finally woke you up. Maria told me that I was lucky to be alive." Then she went on nagging about how she had told me to stay home. Visiting hours were over and a nurse came in to escort Maria and the girls out. The room became dark and lonely. I began feeling pain all over my body, especially in my head. Every time I fell asleep, nightmares would kick in. I saw myself standing in a pool of blood. I was looking at myself lying in it. I woke up screaming violently. The IV needle came loose and I pulled the hoses from my nose and mouth. It hurt like hell when I did that. They were all the way down my throat. The nurses came running in and stuck a needle in my arm. That's the last thing I remembered until the following morning. I woke up to the sound of voices in the room. China, Morena, and a couple of kings were there waiting for me to wake up. The kings had come to give me a card that everyone had signed. They also told me that they would get revenge for what was done to me. Morena and the kings left, but China stayed there with me. She was there by my side every day until I got out of the hospital. I loved her for that. The nurses had tied me down to the bed the night before so that I couldn't pull the hoses out anymore. I couldn't even move my head. China waited on me hand and foot. She read the card and told me the name of each and every person who had signed it. She bought several Mad magazines. She would read them and show me the pictures. China said that I resembled the Alfred E. Newman character on the cover of Mad magazine. After I got out of the hospital, I stayed at Maria's. It took me about 2 months to fully recover from my injuries. It took me about another month to actually start consistently hanging out on the streets again. I had not gotten stabbed. I was beaten with a blunt object. My head was gashed open in several places. By covering myself with my arms, I had saved my own life. One would think that I had learned my lesson about gangbanging, but in truth, my reaction was completely opposite. 9 days of unconsciousness in a coma caused by hate and ignorance. I almost died at 14. At an age when I should have been experiencing the joys of being a teenager, I was desperately trying to survive. I was lost with no safer days in sight. Those who came to my side and supported me were lost themselves. Although they meant well, they came talking only about revenge. It was the only encouragement I came to know.